All right. We ready?
Let me get a beverage.
Go ahead.
Is everybody good? Has everybody got something to drink?
Hold on. Well, hold on.
Mine's on the floor.
Yeah, well.
Welcome to Bonehead. This is where the credits go. All right, stop.
Mine doesn't sound at all like
You just SOS to SOS.
I'm Joe Lewis. This is Bonehead. Thanks for watching us or listening to us on iTunes. If you're watching us right now on iTunes or YouTube or listening to us, I forgot what I was saying.
Hit subscribe.
Down at the left-hand corner is a subscribe button.
Is that right hand?
No, right. Depends on if you're watching it sideways.
By the way, watch Sideways. It's a better movie
A better movie than what?
than this.
Wow.
I look better tilted.
Anyway, subscribe to us. We need the subscriptions. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm good.
Nick, how are you? Nick Brown?
Hey, I am awesome.
There's another guy on the couch.
I know. I've just been sitting
It
here
looks like
like
a
a.
Chad
He's
sandwich
in
over
my
here.
spot.
I know. I feel.
Out,
You
damn
kept it warm.
spot.
Ugh.
You're lucky
appreciate
it's
that.
not wet.
Well, you know, I'm not going to say it wasn't. I'm just being a
Does
good
Chad
guest.
wear diapers? Depends.
Hold on, my OCD. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. iTunes, trust me, that's funny.
I have nothing.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah,
Nick,
thank you for having me on.
did you write some books?
I've written a couple of books.
Do they have pictures in them?
There's pretty pictures in one of them.
I can't read without pictures.
Well, there's okay.
In fact, I can't read.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's good. I have an audiobook.
This is the hell of a time to tell everybody.
He's also deaf.
Huh?
Well, I'm sorry. The Braille audiobook has not come out yet. So,
And
Yeah.
somehow I've made it. White privilege,
And the
dude.
tips of his fingers are so calloused he can't.
White privilege. Anyway,
but yeah, I write urban fantasy kind of action horror stories centered mostly around a werewolf detective and his partner. She's a witch, and her husband the IT guy. And so that's my Werewolf for Hire series.
hold up. Wait a tick. Let's talk about this. So he's a werewolf,
He's a werewolf,
and he's a detective.
and he's a detective.
Now, I don't want you to give too much away because I want other people to read your books. But now the thing about the werewolf that always kind of confuses me, does he wolf out only once a month during the full moon, or can he wolf out whenever the moon's out? What's your rules?
Okay, you know, and I actually put a lot of thought into my rules because when I
Like, you
started
gotta have
writing
'em.
this, you gotta have them,
And you got to follow them.
you gotta follow
But
them.
you can be whatever they are, but you have to follow 'em.
Exactly.
Right.
And so the way I kind of set it up is that werewolves can happen two different ways. You can be born a werewolf, or you can be made a werewolf.
Okay.
Most people who are made a werewolf don't do too well because they don't have the mental capacity born into them to control it. So they wolf out, and usually once they wolf out once, they stay wolfed out. So it's
They're just werewolves all the time.
it's not affected by the cycle of the moon. It's more like there's a split personality thing going on, and that personality will dominate any chance it can get. And
Yeah.
you know, and here's the thing about wolves. Think about animals in general. Animals aren't good or evil. Now, some cats I know might be considered evil, but that's just our perception. Animals
You know I got two cats, right?
I know, that's why I said that. Animals are
Dissing the
basically
kitties.
they're basically amoral. You know,
Like Chad.
they do what's best for them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like Chad. So,
Yeah.
you know, but my guy, so his big struggle is that he's always fighting with that animal side of him. He gets in a fight with somebody, it wants to kill him. You know, he sees a pretty girl, you know, might want to pursue said girl, you know. And that's his answer to everything
it.
is run
Sweet,
it,
sweet
screw
loving.
it, or fight it. Run away from it, screw it, or fight it. So
Like
he's
James.
got to fight
That's
that.
fine.
But he grew up with that
How does he handle eating a banana?
very delicately.
Okay.
All three.
But, you know, and I have some other rules like Silver. He has quick healing, very fast metabolism for healing. Silver doesn't poison him, but it just anything silver that injures him, it counteracts his ability. So you shoot him with a bullet, depending on where he may heal. Shoot him with a silver bullet, it's going to be just like you or I got shot.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, those are kind of the rules that I set up for that. But as far as when he can transform, it's pretty much at will.
All right, Will.
But during the full moon, as he gets closer to that, the urges become stronger. And pretty much on the night of the full moon, he has to transform.
Okay.
So, but he's still mostly in control then.
Okay.
So, that's kind of how I set it up.
Well, it's not every day that we have someone who lives local, who is obviously a published author here. So, kind of take me back to how you got into it, if you don't mind, and we'll go from there. There's a funny story.
Well,
I met this lichen.
Yeah, well, I met this werewolf once. Now, it's actually, I've always been fascinated by werewolves. One of my favorite horror movies is An American Werewolf in London. Yep, I saw the poster, and
John Landis would come on the show. I'd get him to sign it. But
well, I've got a signed John Landis poster, and there's a story behind that too.
Ooh, get to that in a minute.
Okay, so
Because he can talk.
So yes, he can, and he tells really, really dirty jokes. By the way,
Oh,
Yes, he uses the F word almost as
yeah.
much as... No, he uses it more than I do.
but I've always liked werewolves. Enjoyed the movies. Kind of fell out of them in the '90s because there weren't a lot of great ones coming out then.
What? Cursed?
Cursed.
American
It's a
Werewolf in
shithole.
Paris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but about 2001,
Wee.
the Sci-Fi Channel aired their original movie, which is they bought a movie from England and played it as
I
original.
know exactly what it is. Dog Soldiers. Directed by Neil Marshall.
Neil Marshall, awesome guy, and that was the first movie that got me back into it. And so I started watching more and reading more. And then about 2006, yeah, I did my first horror convention. I went down to Texas for the Texas Frightmare Weekend.
Uh-huh.
And that was their very first one. And I spent the weekend there. I'd never been to a con like that. And I really enjoyed it, and I got kind of inspired. So I started a website called bemovieman.com. And that was in order to practice writing. Because I've always had these stories kicking around in my head, but I never really sat down and wrote anything.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I sit down and write, it's going to suck. Because writing is just like lifting weights. You don't go and bench press 500 pounds on your first try. Unless, okay, fine, guys. You guys may. I got little spindly chicken
Somebody
arms, so-
call the vet. Those pythons are sick.
I can open a jar of pickles with a hammer.
The gun shows down at Rubberina, guys. Come on.
Get him a Band-Aid.
I seriously just hurt my wrist.
He's cut. No, that's what you do.
But
Fly away.
well, anyway.
You were saying, sorry.
But I started Be Movie Man so I could practice writing.
Right.
And after about a year of doing that website, I started writing my first book as part of NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month in November. And I intended to write a 50,000 word book in the 30 days. Failed miserably. Got 22,000 words done.
That's pretty good.
But I was like, you know what? I'm still got the book in my head, though, so I just kept writing. And 1 year and 1 day later, I finished at 103,000 words. So it was a longer book, and it took longer, but I got my first book out, and I said, this is, I liked it, and my wife's a professional editor, so that's kind of handy.
Yeah.
She writes also nonfiction, but I said, well, I got another book in me. So a year later, I wrote my second book, which my first one's called Blood Curse, Werewolf for Hire novel. My second one is Blood Sacrifice. Blood Curse is actually set here in central Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
And Blood Sacrifice, I set in England, in the area where my wife's from. So, I cheated a little bit.
Where at?
Down on the coast near Dover.
Oh, yeah.
And-
That's where Chad's from.
Oh, I bet it is.
True.
Bet it is. Then Chad would know all about the tunnels there.
I do actually. I've actually been to Dover, so yes,
Yeah.
I've been in the tunnels.
Cool. Well,
Yes.
the tunnels don't
Chad's
just
like
go to
Charles
Dover.
Bronson. He's
Yeah.
digging tunnels.
They are all over that part of England.
Mm-hmm.
And in my wife's town, there's actually a huge network.
Oh, really?
And so there was also a huge power plant that was decommissioned about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it stood on the outside of town. And my idea for the second book involved those tunnels and that power plant that was decommissioned.
Oh, wow.
And then I started writing short stories too, and that's Werewolves, Zombies, and Leprechauns is kind of my anthology of those. And I'm working on my third novel now.
So, real quick,
Yeah, go, because I got two questions, and we'll come back to them.
you mentioned werewolves,
Yep.
and they're actually my favorite monster as well. I think they're just fascinating
Love them.
because they don't have all the joke that I always make is I can live as a werewolf. I got a couple of days of a month where I might kill people. Other than that, though, I can still go outside.
Yeah.
I can still do my business. Still,
Yeah.
I like garlic. I can do all that
You
stuff.
can hang out. Yeah.
So that's what I've always thought about is why don't more people do stuff with werewolves? Because they are kind of the ultimate monster to me.
You know, I ask that question too, and especially vampires are so popular.
Yeah.
Especially
And-
sparkly ones.
Yeah, sparkly ones are disgustingly popular. And don't get me going on what they did to werewolves too. Although I gotta say, the werewolves in a certain sparkly vampire series of books, their pants, they must spend a fortune on pants. Because every time they transform, their pants
It's-
just explode.
It's the Incredible Hulk
I
phenomenon.
know, it's, you know.
Joe, no pants exploding comments from you. No, you're cut off.
But yeah, I think werewolves are a very underrated monster, and you know this goes all the way back to the original, the Wolfman,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even before that, you know, you had the Werewolf of London with Henry Hull,
yeah.
and it's funny because that one, and most people don't know that one, and it's more of a Jekyll and Hyde story than a werewolf.
Well,
one.
that's what I always, and I'm not poo-pooing your literature or anything, but that's always, to me, werewolves are just an offshoot of Jekyll and Hyde.
A lot of that. There's a lot to be said to that. Actually, the animal nature taking
Yeah,
over.
right.
You know, and it's interesting because one of the other areas that I've done a lot of reading about is the comparison between vampires and werewolves. And if you look, it's almost a social caste system. Your werewolves tend to be your bikers. Your werewolves tend to be your bad boys. You know, your vampires tend to be your posh, upper class. And that's not always the case.
Because werewolf is
but-
more of an id thing.
Yep.
Well, but you know what's really interesting about werewolves too is that there seems to be some sort of.
Werewolves too. Electric
Boogaloo.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mick. But werewolves also tend to pop up in most cultures. In some like Native American mythology,
You have your skinwalkers.
you have all of that. So that's another reason I think it's fascinating.
Yalaglanchi, you know, you have, I mean, even here in Kentucky, you got the Dog Man, stuff like that.
I just think that's what's fascinating about it. It's kind of like dragons tend to be that way. They're not always called dragons, but it seems to be giant lizards.
Yep.
And werewolves pop up in most cultures.
What's a yellow quachi?
Yalaglanchi, and there's a lot
I
of
have
different
no.
ways.
I thought one of you all would
there's
tell
a
me.
there's a lot of different ways to pronounce it. Nagloshi is another, and I by the way, for any Native Americans watching this, I apologize because I know I'm butchering it.
No,
also.
but there's a great, terrible, it's on Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie, Werewolf.
Werewolf from 1996.
And the pronunciations
Yeah,
throughout that are,
yeah.
it's a werewolf.
Oh, well, that's because the leading lady was from Yugoslavia or somewhere. And
Yeah,
this was only
and
she had a couple of really big talents, and that's how she got in the movie. But that was about it.
her talents were what she had going for.
But I,
Good cook.
yeah, she's
yeah,
a good
And
cook.
she was a good seamstress.
And quite
Very.
frankly, she worked cheap.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
And
that's
her two big toes were
huge.
yeah.
This
Well,
total Uma Thurman.
But no, because they mentioned
thumbs.
the Yanagachi,
Cowgirls get the
Yanagachi,
blues.
Yeah.
and they say it 1,000 different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And the villain's hair changes 5 times because it took
Oh,
them forever.
I don't like it when I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you did some research on your Yamagachis and your werewolves.
I was sitting here trying to figure out what the difference between.
I had a Tamagotchi. I killed it.
Yeah,
Killed it dead.
don't kill your Tamagotchi.
With a hammer. I like hammers.
The Pokemons will get mad at you if you do that. And then
Yeah, because we
then
have a
you-
huge
you got-
Pokemon audience out there.
I bet you do. You
we
know,
have
they're-
2, and I just pissed them off.
Pika, Screwjoe, Pika.
Pika suck it.
Hey,
Anyway,
But yeah, no, I've always been very fascinated with the whole werewolf mythology. culture,
Wendigo.
too.
What's the difference between Wendigo?
Okay, Wendigo is also a Native American legend.
That's what I was going to ask you
And
about.
I actually did a lecture on Wendigos at last year's Scarefest. And Wendigo is
Haley's on the other side of the camera going, yes.
Oh, hi Haley.
Hi, I just remember it.
Hi. The idea of the Wendigo is it's a cautionary tale about cannibalism and giving in to your lustful nature, more to the point. And there were a lot of different themes to it, but the general one is, and the accepted thing about werewolves kind of comes from the Algonquin peoples, which is kind of northern U.S., southern Canada, mostly east of the Mississippi, but there is some to the west. But for the most part, that kind of area up in the Ontario, Quebec, that zone. And the idea is that if you consume human flesh willingly, then you will become a monster. And more to the point, you will become an unsatiable monster. You will be just constantly hungry. And the really interesting thing about it is that the legends, they vary a bit, but the idea is that you will grow as you eat. The more you eat, the more you grow, and the reason you grow is so that you are never full and satisfied.
Somebody must have slipped me a finger somewhere along the way, because I keep growing and eating, and I'm never satisfied either.
It's the willing part of that. He willingly ate a finger.
Willingly. I mean, it was in a hot dog bun, and there was no hot dogs, and we had the chili already there.
And what could you do? How could you stop? But yeah, the Wendigo legend, though, to me is very similar in idea to the legends of, say, skinwalkers, the Nagloshi,
Right.
Yilaglanchi, those things that
That's
we were
another
talking
terrible
about.
movie, FYI. Skinwalkers.
Yeah, Skinwalkers isn't very good.
Directed by
Oh God,
Jason Ten.
Yeah.
Jason, and his name's Jason or something.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
that
Keep
one.
going.
Yeah, but that's the difference from my research on the difference between werewolves and Wendigos. That's where I'd go with it.
Yeah.
But I think the Wendigo legend is very interesting to me, because the idea is that it's an evil spirit that gains access to your body through this willful act of eating human flesh. And once it's in there, you're pretty much screwed. You know, and you're just going to keep killing and killing and killing until you are either excised by a shaman or just killed. And apparently you're pretty hard to kill when you're one of those things too. So
Yeah, turn into Steven Seagal.
yeah, it's a turn into Steven Seagal. He you know,
Because
he
he's
keeps
hard
eating,
to kill.
and he keeps eating and growing.
And he's Russian.
And he's got his own cryptocurrency now.
Oh, he does?
He does. Apparently, Yugoslavia or somewhere got him to back their cryptocurrency.
Oh, please tell me it's called Seagalleons. Galleons. Seagalleons. I'll need 1 million Seagalleons to release your daughter.
That's what that's what I'd
Can
call.
we write that?
By the way, 1 million Seagalleons, I think that's about 42 cents.
That's
give or
fine.
take. So
I just need
Yeah.
press coverage however I can get it.
40%.
Local man demands Seagalleons for
I think we got off track a little bit, though. So,
Oh.
you after your book, you started to do, you went to Texas Frightmare. How'd you
Yeah.
get involved with Scarefest? I'm just curious.
well, it's funny because Scarefest, one of my friends who's a local author named Amanda Hervey, and she used to write for Kentucky Monthly. And she knew Patty Starr and Chuck Starr through Kentucky Monthly. And she called me up one day and said, "Hey, Nick, you like werewolves and weird stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, I do."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, you know, they're starting a horror convention here in Lexington." And at the time, you know, when the event started, 10 years ago, ghost hunting had become the big thing, the Sci-Fi Channel.
We were at the first one.
Yeah.
I've actually been to every one of them.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, I was going to say, I called them up and said, "Hey, need some help?" And they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Nick." And they said, "Come on." And so the next thing you know, I was involved with the show, and I've actually been involved with the show since the beginning.
That's
And they've also been gracious enough to give me a booth at the show since the beginning. So I'm one of those people that constantly pops up at the event. So, keeping me at my booth during the event's kind of hard because I've got some additional responsibilities now. But
Yeah, what do you do with Scarefest?
I'm the media coordinator,
Yeah.
which is many different hats. This year I'm working on I'm trying to develop some sponsorship angles, and also trying to take us into a slightly untouched area for most conventions, I think, which is horror video games. We touched on that the year before last with the Friday the 13th game, and now that game is out and it is doing really well, I want to look at trying to get more games involved and actually having possibly a whole gaming segment to the event.
That'd be great.
Well, this year alone, there's so many excellent horror or horror-themed games coming out.
Right.
I mean, The Last of Us 2 is coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got, and that's a PlayStation exclusive. But then on the Xbox exclusive side, you've got State of Decay 2 coming, which is, for those of you who've never played that think of Grand Theft Auto with zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the post-apocalyptic world fighting zombies in a Grand Theft Auto style world.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it's a lot of fun, very distracting.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to those games, you know, of course, you've got some of your classics, and VR games are really starting to take off. And I'd like to see us get something where people can come, try out some of these games, you know, have some of the game people there, maybe even get some guests who are voice actors, motion capture actors for these games. Because have any of you guys played Until Dawn?
That one I haven't, no.
Okay.
Oddly enough, we all have our specialities, and to look at me, you would think that fat guy's a gamer. I never even made it past Xbox, and somebody bought me that Xbox. A staff did, back in the aughts. So I'm not a gamer. James is.
Yeah, I'm a
James,
yeah.
Chad would like to be, but he doesn't want to spend the money.
I stink at video games.
I'm a
The
gamer.
last game I beat was Booger Man on Sega Genesis.
Awesome.
It's a pick and flick adventure.
Pick and Flick Adventure.
Is it really called Pick and Flick?
It's called a Pick and Flick Adventure.
I
Oh,
So
remember-
you're shocked by Pick and Flick Adventure, but not the fact that the title is Booger Man.
Not really.
Um,
I'm not really shocked by it. I'm in awe of that. That's really funny.
I used to play a lot of
How do
horror
I play
games.
this?
Yeah.
And now I have
Can we
these
bring the
small
Sega
creatures in my home.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And little kids and horror video games, not necessarily the
No,
best
so I
combo.
don't. I do a lot of Marvel Lego, the Lego games.
The
If they would
Lego,
do-
you know.
By the way, Lego, if you happen to see this, why don't you make a deal with the Universal Monsters? Do Lego Universal Monsters?
Now that would be fun.
That would at least let me have
Old
some.
school Dracula, Wolfman.
Yeah, that's
you know.
so Lego. If you're listening, but I think, but yeah, the horror gaming angle I think was really interesting, and actually going back to werewolves, has there been a werewolf one?
You know, I have not seen a good werewolf game.
I was thinking about that.
There
Because
have
it seems
been-
like there should be.
You know, I think there should be too, and I think there's some good concepts behind it. So maybe, game developers, if you're watching, feel free to contact me at nick@bmovieman.com because, hey, Werewolf for Hire is available for licensing.
I was about to say no, and
Now
I'll
that he's done blowing himself.
Yeah.
no, but
Sorry, excuse me.
no,
No, we
I
do it
agree
all the
with
time.
you though because that seems
We
like
usually
that's
do
a-
it for other people, though.
Wow.
that's a concept that needs to, I mean, seriously, just talking about games and going off script and all that stuff, but it seems like we've got tons of tons of vampire games.
Yeah.
The Vampire the Masquerade was on computer way back in the day. I played it, but there's not been a lot.
There hasn't been, as a matter of fact, I'm sitting here kind of racking my brain for
On the
werewolf
collectible card
games.
game front, there was Rage for
Yeah.
a while. I played that on card games, but yeah, there's just not been a
Well,
lot.
and there's a werewolf party game. I think it's The Beast Among Us or something like that, where you one of you is the werewolf, and you have to figure out which one it is. But as far as
It's Joe.
Is it
Because I'm fat and hairy?
Oh,
well,
what
that,
does that have to do with being a werewolf?
Because I ate
Their
that
wolf.
freaking
Yeah.
hot dog
Their castle. Why are we talking this way?
with the finger in it.
Most werewolf. Well, no.
It has nothing to do with your looks.
And by the
it's
way,
fact that you
how
won't
is the
stop
person prepared?
I guess Lon Chaney Jr. was the chunkiest of all.
Can we
Universal
add
horror-
scallions to people?
Just
people with scallions.
Stuffed.
Yummy.
Joe stuff.
Oh, salmon stuffed people.
I don't want to have to be the one that stuffs Joe
I mean,
if we have to eat.
I want
if you
something
were a
opera
werewolf,
style.
you'd probably be more like a Saint Bernard.
Well, I was wondering if
You mean loving and cuddly? I
Yeah.
don't think that's me at all.
No,
Yeah.
hairy and like just
Slobbery.
slobbery and falls on the floor.
I don't slobber.
Not very athletic.
Well, I was wondering if
So
if,
he
you
thinks he
could be a
doesn't slobber.
were-poodle, were-Pomeranians, things like that.
James is a were-corgi.
Yeah, were-corgis with the little legs.
Have you seen James's butt? It's adorable. Looks like a walking loaf of bread. Anyway, so I'm curious, while we're still on werewolves, and I know you do your podcast, and we'll get to that in a minute, but what are some of your favorite, I know you mentioned American Werewolf in London. I'm sitting here going through my head thinking of the werewolf films I love, and most of them are all allegories.
Yeah.
Which ones are some of your favorites?
All right, I actually have 3 that I kind of rotate through my favorites. Bless you. And those are American Werewolf.
Teen Wolf 2.
I'm sorry, Jason Bateman may be awesome, but no, Teen Wolf 2 isn't in
theater.
the top. I saw it in theater also.
That's because we're old, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, American Werewolf in London.
I agree. That's my favorite.
And that one has a special place because it kind of scared the padiddle out of me when I was a kid. I saw it way too young and was walking home after seeing it.
About 21, 22?
11, when it came out. And I was walking home and walked by this guy's house where he had a Doberman Pinscher that he kept in the backyard. And it was chained up, but it decided that I looked tasty as I'm walking by at night after seeing this film.
Were you stuffed with scallions?
I was stuffed with scallions at the time, and it leapt out and scared
Oscar
me.
style.
So that kind of imprinted on me with American Werewolf in London. So I got that going on. One of my other favorites though is Dog Soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
I think Neil Marshall, he mixed a lot of genres really well. And he talks about it. Everybody kind of relates it as Night of the Living Dead werewolves. His actual idea, I think, was more Zulu.
Yeah.
With werewolves.
And it's very much got an Aliens vibe.
Yeah.
It's if you've never seen it, go out and I'm sorry, I don't mean to stop, but Neil Marshall, check him out. Watch that and watch The Descent. Actually, watch every damn thing.
Yeah, don't forget Doomsday.
Doomsday is a John Carpenter, George Miller picture all rolled into one.
No, I love Doomsday.
And
though.
It's Escape from New York and the Road Warrior. And what else?
Oh, it's
Excalibur.
Excalibur with and it's got Sean. Okay, I think it's Sean Pertwee, who he's in a bunch of movies with that Neil Marshall's done.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch any movie with Sean Pertwee, there's a very, very good chance that he will be disemboweled at some point.
Yeah.
It happened in Dog Soldiers. They ate him alive in Doomsday.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Sorry, folks. But, okay, if you haven't seen Doomsday by now, just go out, see it. It's on
one of my favorite
Netflix, I
movies.
think.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But, that's another one. And now this one, my next one is kind of a controversial idea for a werewolf movie. Because it's not necessarily a werewolf, but it's Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Love that film.
Yeah.
From 2001, that was the most successful French film ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I absolutely love it. Mark Dacascos is in it, and for those of you who don't know who Mark Dacascos is, he's an extremely underrated martial artist who's also the chairman on not Top Chef, but the one where they compete, a bunch of chefs.
Iron Chef.
That's it. He's the chairman on that.
Yeah.
So he comes out, does a flip, and he's just awesome. And it plays a Native American named Manny.
He was also the Crow in the TV show.
Yes, he was the Crow in the TV show, and dude's bad.
That's a good one because I actually was going through my list of the ones I like and I forgot all about that one.
That one preyed on me. Like I watched it and I went, "This is really interesting." And then later that night, I couldn't stop. It just the wheels kept spinning.
Well, there's so much going on in that movie. I mean, it's espionage. It's a historical piece. It's a werewolf piece. It's a love story. It's it's got shiny objects. I mean, what more could you ask for? And the thing about that film that gets me is the whole legend of the Beast of Gévaudan, which the entire film is based around these werewolf attacks. And it's a true story. Now, werewolf, maybe not, but definitely there was something going on in the Gévaudan region of France between 1762 and 1765. And it's kind of a weird... Think of Gévaudan as the eastern Kentucky of France.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're back in the days of, serfs.
So I'm glad you're telling me all this because
We're not talking
since
the
I've
high
seen it.
society puffy wig.
No. They're out in
They're in the sticks.
They're in the hills.
They're in the hills,
Yeah.
but there is a high society element because all of these people are serfs. So somebody owns the land, they're working, you have these counts and viscounts who are responsible for the area, but their peasants are being killed, and it's not just being killed, they're having their throats ripped out. It's primarily women and small children, and they're having their throats ripped out, they're being disemboweled, partially eaten. And here's the really weird part. You go and look for how many people were killed by the Beast of Gévaudan, and the number ranges from 40 to over 300. And part of the reason for that is every time somebody died violently in that area during that period, they were like, "Oh my God, it is La Bête, the beast," you know. So
That wasn't bad, dude. That
yeah.
wasn't bad.
So
Pretty good.
the moral is, if you want to kill somebody and have a time machine, go to this area and they'll just be blamed on the beast.
Could be. But I got really
Why
fascinated.
did my mind automatically go there? Maybe I need.
Sorry,
counseling.
it kind of slipped into what he said.
Yeah, I'm
a lot
not
of
gonna.
work.
I'm not going to say I'm disturbed by that a little bit, but I'm glad I'm on this.
Well,
side
If you
of
want
the
to
couch.
co-write a time travel serial killer, let me know.
That's
We'll
not
work
the
on that.
disturbing part. Let's hope the pants stay on.
Well, you know, Time Cop
no.
will stop him. Don't worry. You know, sorry, I'm a
Time-
big Van Damme fan, so.
Time Criminal is much more of an interesting theory.
Well, that is the best Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Well,
Time Cop.
you
What's
know.
better than Time Cop?
Well,
There's
JC
not.
the
CBD.
6 demon bag.
JCVD.
Thank you for the Big Trouble. Thank you for the Big Trouble reference. That's
No.
true. A 6 demon bag. There you go, Egg.
What's in it? Oh, Earth, Wind, Fire, all that sort of thing. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm going through all the Jean-Claude. I mean, there's Universal Soldier, there's Time Cop, there's Lionheart,
I don't.
Death
Okay,
Warrants
what's the
Entertainment.
Let's go back to here are some other
Legionnaire.
werewolf films that I
Okay.
enjoy.
Okay, give them up.
The original, The Wolfman.
The original Wolfman is
On
awesome.
Lon Chaney, yeah. I like. Have you ever seen The Company of Wolves, directed by Neil Jordan?
Yes,
But it's really.
I have a copy of it.
It's Little
but
Red Riding
It's Little
Hood.
Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
And I will say this: it has one of my least favorite transformation moments.
Really? Where they
The whole when they come out of the scan. I
love
really
that.
don't like that, and I've seen that more and more.
Well, they
'Cause-
all ripped it off of Neil Jordan.
well, yeah.
Nobody had done that
Well,
before. It's got
yeah.
Angela Lansbury in it.
Yeah, no, it's a hard to find film too.
Yeah, I've got the poster. I don't know why I own the poster. but
I
own the
have
poster.
a bootleg copy of the film because I couldn't find a legit copy anywhere.
I did not know that it was
you
out of
know,
print.
that's well, it may be back in print now. If it is, somebody tell me because I would love to get a legit copy of it. But love Company of Wolves.
Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps, fantastic.
Fantastic
Love
movie.
that film.
I know.
And you know the sequels. But
They're not terrible.
They're not
though.
terrible.
They're not terrible. Have
They
you ever
just
seen the
can't live up
Ginger
to the-
Snap sequels?
actually,
They're
the
not
third
bad.
the third one is really good, where
Yeah.
they go back
Back
to
in time, yeah.
to the old fort in
And
Canada.
yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ginger Snaps is pretty.
Ginger
good.
Snaps
It's
is
pretty
pretty
good.
awesome. I mean, there's a lot of really good werewolf films, and
Is
there's a
there-
lot of bad
We
ones.
just named 8.
Well,
How about,
They've been
and I
making
know it's
cinema
only
for-
one sequence of it, but how about Trick or Treat or Trick or Treat?
Trick or
I was
Treat,
thinking that one too.
the one,
Trick or Treat.
yeah, they had the werewolves in that, and they did the skin ripping transformation
Yeah,
too.
I think
All
but I think that one was one that you could. I mean, you kind of saw what was coming, but
Yeah.
they tried to do that flip, and obviously the Little Red Riding Hood symbolism playing there.
Okay, what about this one? Wolf Cop.
Is that Mario Van Peebles?
No, this is
There's
this
one
is
with Mario Van Peebles.
okay. There
where
is
he
one.
plays a wolf
Yes,
cop.
that was an
It's
HBO
called
original
Full Moon?
something like that. It was an
Yeah,
HBO original movie.
Yeah.
No, it was
I
actually-
remember that.
When did Wolf Cop come out?
Wolf Cop was
2013?
2013 or 14.
Isn't Wolf Cop 2 out now?
It's getting ready to
Yeah,
be.
it's
released.
already-
Because I heard of Wolf
Yeah,
Cop 2.
because I've
so
seen the trailer for it.
Yeah.
And I got to say, Wolf Cop, I love the concept. And do you know the story behind the making of it?
No.
They actually won a contest in Canada. One of the big theater chains in Canada put on a contest for screenplays. And they were looking for a film to produce and theatrically distribute through their network of theaters in Canada. And Wolf Cop won, so they got $1 million Canadian budget, which is about $48.50 US. But it was still enough for them to do a really good, funny werewolf movie.
Yep.
And they do a skin ripping transformation too. And for those of you who've seen it, you know the scene. It is probably the most instantly shocking transformation scene
Has
I've
anybody
ever
got
seen.
a copy of Wolf
It's
Cop?
on. It was on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
It's off Netflix now, but you can still order it. So, you know, as a matter of fact, I think it's on Amazon Prime, maybe the streaming. So,
You know, speaking of comedy, I mean, there is a werewolf comedy that we've kind of glazed over. that
Chad
we
is
talked
now
about
getting a
before.
lozenge.
Okay.
We all have the cooties.
We can't not mention FDR American Badass.
That's true. Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen FDR American Badass, and I so wanted to talk to Barry Bostwick about it when he
We
was
did.
at Scarefest this last
Yeah,
year.
I actually did his
James
panel.
did his panel.
Okay.
when I
And that
in
was the one
audience.
question I had to ask without and Joe actually asked it before I got to it. Was
Oh, I stole his question.
Yeah. Well, I had to talk to him. I wanted to talk to him about Megaforce. Because, okay,
I'll need him.
we covered Megaforce on the B-Movie podcast that I
Yeah.
co-host. And that was a funny one because I actually hadn't seen it in, like, decades.
It got any
But
better?
I saw it in the theater when it came out in 82.
Did you really?
And, well, here's their story behind that. My stepdad was not my stepdad at the time. He was dating my mom. And this is how I know that he really wanted to get on my good side. Look, reflecting
I
back.
thought you were going to say this.
He
Hell, I
took
knew he
me-
really wanted to
he
get on my
took-
mom. Sorry.
Well, he did want to get on my mom, obviously, but he wanted
But
my,
he had to wait
he
his
wanted
turn.
my approval for his mounting. And so,
But your mom
you know,
was
I think we just got the title of
Oh,
this
no.
episode.
But your mom was
Approval.
presenting.
not that I was aware of, but you know that's beside the point.
Sorry,
I wasn't
dude.
looking. But well, I'm the one who just said my stepdad mounting my mom. So
I know,
there's no
I know
no
if I-
apology necessary.
Sorry.
But anyway, he took me to see Megaforce, and then he took me to see Megaforce again because I was 12, and as a 12-year-old, I thought Megaforce was an amazingly great film. I thought it was cheated at the 1982 Academy Award. You know,
Is it
because
kind
I
of
was
like some
12.
people argue about Kroll the same way, like that?
I think so. And then
bad.
years and years later, I'm watching riff tracks, and they release the riff track of Megaforce.
Which you can watch is on Amazon, right?
Yeah,
right
it
now.
is on
It's
Amazon.
on Amazon streaming.
And I watched that, and I loved it. My wife and I laughed our asses off. Next day, I called my stepdad up and apologized. I'm like, you remember 35 years ago that you took? Yeah, you do remember. Well, I'm sorry.
We all
Jim.
have a
But
shitty
I'm
movie.
really
Mine's Deep
sorry.
Rising. I saw Deep Rising in the theater twice.
You know what? I like Deep Rising.
I love Deep Rising, and they
That's fist
piss
bump,
me
fist
all the
bump
time.
right there.
No, no, no.
I never said I hated
also,
it.
I
That's
think
Steven
the flip-
Sommers' best film.
I think the flip
Mummies
side
can
of that
suck it.
is you go to certain movies
Thomas.
with your kids.
Oh yeah, it probably is on.
You go to certain movies with your
Yeah.
kids because, like, my son, his first movie, he was 5 at the time. That he literally grabbed me. I took him to see something else. I'm sure it was a Marvel movie.
Debbie
in the
does
theater.
something.
And he grabbed me by the collar when the trailer came on. He goes, "Daddy, you gotta take me to see that. Daddy, you gotta take me to see
You
it."
took your first son to his first movie was the Muppets because we were there.
No. But it was the first one that he screamed, "Daddy, you have to take
It was
me
the
to
Muppets. We were
It
there.
is. That was his first movie. But the first one that he saw a trailer and literally
Popped his
Almost
cherry on
tears-
the Muppets.
almost tears in his eyes was Monster Trucks.
Hey,
Oh,
So I sat through Monster Trucks, and by the way, I had convinced myself it would be.
and it is
and
plural.
It's not bad. It's not great. I do not want it to get out that I think that's a great film. However, I had convinced myself it was going to be so bad that I actually was able to go, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
okay. So what was the worst movie you've ever seen then?
Oh,
Oh,
man,
in
there's
theaters?
so many.
Yeah.
The only theater I
In
ever...
theaters. Let's do
I'll say,
theaters.
the only one I've ever actually went, I want to walk up and demand my money back because it literally sexually assaulted my eyes, was Ballistics X versus Sever.
Okay, that's
I was so mad, like, because I had read something
We've never
about...
really talked about it.
I had read something about the screenplay, and the screenplay, the guy that did the original
Oh
screenplay,
my god.
Story
time with James. Story
Was-
time with James. Go ahead and eat a bullet. Did we get a graphic
Anyway,
for that?
he wanted to turn it into a novel, and once he heard about how the filming was going, he ditched the novel and different
Nice.
novels and stuff. Because it was directed by Chaos,
oh.
KAOS. Look him up. He's only done music videos
Yeah.
before and after.
And you can sort of tell.
Yeah. So X versus Sever is
Yeah.
mine. I literally was so just cinema died.
Okay.
Chad?
Oh man, that's hard for me because there's only been one time where I've walked out of a movie and wanted to punch a wall. Superman Returns. That's the only. I mean, I've seen
Okay.
and I've seen crap in the theater. I mean,
Superman Returns isn't as bad as Superman versus and
well at the time no, but I've never been so angry of he can't have a kid. I just like I got angry.
Did you go on like a whole Clerks
I was
thing?
with you.
We saw it together?
Yes, we saw that, and I actually came out of
Chad.
the theater angry.
I love you. You know that, right?
Yeah.
You know how many shit movies we've seen together?
I know. But I'm just trying. I mean, I've seen all kinds of bad movies in the theaters. I mean, movies that are considered bad, like The Shadow. I've loved The
I
Shadow.
love The Shadow.
I've seen Teenage
Alec
Mutant Ninja
Baldwin.
Turtles 3, Turtles in Time.
Oh,
And I still didn't walk out angry. I walked out angry out of Superman Returns because of they just ruined it.
What about you?
mine is Battlefield Earth.
Oh!
I saw
the book.
Battlefield Earth in the theater.
I read the book.
Yeah.
I've read all 12 gabillion pages of
Now,
it.
see, before I saw Battlefield Earth in the theater, I wasn't angry. I was just confused as to what the hell I just spent 2
Well,
hours
the thing
watching.
is, they only do the first 300 pages of the book.
Well, and okay, I know there's
It's
it's
not-
story
it's-
time with Nick now though.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought I hated that movie, and I came out. I was angry. I was mad. I spent the money. I didn't walk out, but I
Yeah.
was angry. And a couple of years later, I was like, I was at a friend's house, and his 9-year-old kid. We were sitting around, and he had a pile of DVDs, and his son goes, "Dad, I want to watch that. It's got, it looks like it's got aliens and stuff," and it was Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? Maybe I was just having a bad day. I'm going to give this a chance." So we put in Battlefield Earth. Halfway through it, his son gets up and goes, "Isn't it my bedtime yet?" And that's how I knew I was right. It was a bad movie. When the 9-year-old's like, "Isn't it my bedtime, Dad?" That's bad.
The only movie I ever walked out of, and it was because I was on a date and she was getting pissed, and I was looking for something other than entertainment of the kind on the screen, was Spy Hard. But
Yeah.
Spy Hard is probably, I don't know that I've ever actually finished it with Leslie
I
Nielsen.
finished
Yeah.
If
it.
you're gonna spy, you
It's
gotta
pretty
spy
bad, but
It's
I
bad, but it's not.
I don't know. I
not.
tell you, have you ever seen this? God, that Nightmare on Elm Street remake? I was pissed when I walked out of that. The sequel to The Woman in Black.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I saw that on.
I saw that at the Dollar Theater a few years ago and fell asleep.
Mm.
And I don't fall asleep in movies. It's
That's-
pretty bad.
it
It's
wasn't-
really
it wasn't
boring.
great.
It's not the worst thing. I don't know the worst
Yeah.
thing I saw in the theater.
That's because that question just pops up in my head sometimes. But
I'm a comic book
McHale's
nerd.
Navy
There's
is
only.
pretty bad.
I like McHale's
I
Navy.
saw that
Okay,
one.
but doing the B movie podcast, I've got to ask if you've done a movie for the B movie podcast because it's a movie I've now became fascinated by.
Oh,
and I
well,
wanna
tell
resee.
us about the B
Oh,
Movie
yeah,
podcast
let's do that.
first.
Okay, well, I mean, it's the B Movie Podcast, and it's basically
You
we
don't
do,
say.
I know, right? And it's bmoviecast.com, and the B Movie Podcast, though, we look at, and it started out looking at a lot of the older genre films, but it's come around. I mean, the first movie we ever did for it was Todd Browning's Freaks,
Yeah,
which
Which is a classic.
which is
But
a
is that
classic.
considered a B movie though?
I don't know that I consider it a B movie
but,
either.
Okay, and your definition of B movie is kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
At this point, ours is whatever we want to do for the podcast.
Okay.
But we're. I mean, Megaforce is definitely a B movie.
Oh yes.
And-
Directed by Smokey and the Bandits, Hal
Yes,
Needham.
Hal Needham.
Who, by the way, if you get a chance, pick up his autobiography. I read it a few years. He's dead now. It's a great book.
Well, and here's
He's
another
a
interesting.
fascinating man.
What's the relationship between Megaforce and Blade Runner?
I don't know.
Golden Harvest. They were both part of a 3-movie deal that Golden Harvest had to do. They were going to invade the U.S. market with these big movies, and they gave Hal Needham free reign with Megaforce. And then they also, same year, they released Blade Runner. That's
Yeah.
Golden Harvest if you look the original release.
So was Golden Harvest a company that was out of Europe? or
it was
something?
out of China and
Oh,
or Hong
yeah.
Kong.
Hong Kong. So, okay.
And they were trying to break into the mainstream American market
What
because
was
they
the-
did a lot of martial arts films.
Right. What was
obviously.
the third one?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were 3 films in the series because I found this out when I was doing some research about the history of Megaforce. And Hal Needham, this was his Megaforce was his opus. His this is it because it was cars and guns and
Stunts.
miraculously very few people really seem to get hurt in this movie.
And he loves humor. He loved action
Yeah.
comedy. It's all Hal Needham
Yeah.
ever wanted to make was an action
That's
comedy.
right.
That was it.
And that movie, it's not good, but it was a fun movie. And I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who was in the Warriors, and he played the kind of cowboy sidekick in
It's been honestly, if I knew we were going to talk about it, I would have rewatched it. It's been a long time. I don't know that I've actually ever seen it from beginning to the end. I think I've only seen scenes.
So
I've never seen it.
It's tough, but he's in that, and he was supposed to be the next big thing after the Warriors, and then he did Xanadu, the musical, and he said the Warriors put me on the map, and Xanadu took me right off of it, and the next thing he's doing Megaforce. So, but yeah, so the B movie cast though, we talk about genre film. We have guests on sometimes, and actually that's how I got to meet John Landis.
Okay.
Because the guy who originally started the B movie cast, one of our listeners is a guy named Mark Mostyn, who's a photographer for Cinefantastique magazine.
Oh, yes.
And he's also done a lot of stuff for Rolling Stone.
Okay.
And so he mostly does rock and roll stuff over in London. He's British. But he's done a lot of genre stuff, and he became friends with Ray Harryhausen towards the end of Ray Harryhausen's life. Mm-hmm. And Ray got him to go into Ray's garage and catalog all this stuff that he had, all these models, all these drawings. Well, he was just going to throw all this stuff out. And Mark went in and was like, oh my God, we've got to save this. Next thing you know, it's on exhibit at the British Film Institute.
Right, because it's Ray Harryhausen.
And that's how he got to know John Landis. And he and Landis became friends. And John said, hey, would you like to go to Bob's Basement in Hollywood? Are you familiar with Bob's Basement?
Bob Burns?
Bob Burns.
We've met Bob.
By the way, we've met Bob Burns.
I've been in Bob's Basement.
Oh, you suck a whole bag.
Yeah.
Have you seen...
with John Landis. And this was the thing. Mark was like, "Okay, Nick,
is this a big dick thing or whatever?"
It's not. I just
no,
this
it's
was
cool.
I know. I can't talk
cool.
that.
But he
Harlan Ellison hit him with a piece of glass.
But it was a really awesome 3 or so hours looking at movie props and hanging out with John Landis. And the hardest thing was to not be a fanboy while I was doing it.
Yeah.
I could be a fanboy for the stuff. But I was trying to not be all like...
Because John Landis is a huge nerd, too.
Yeah.
We always forget that most of the filmmakers, specifically the filmmakers, not so much the actors, but the filmmakers and the writers, these people are just like us in the sense of they're just nerds.
Well, you mentioned Harlan Ellison earlier. He's a huge comic book nerd.
He's a huge nerd. John Landis is geeking out with you, right?
That was it. And it was such a fun, time, but that's how I had picked up a American Werewolf in London poster. Mm-hmm. And as we were leaving, I got him to sign it. So that was, and it was an Italian poster, so it's a narrow sheet, and it had a space up at the top where they could put the showtimes. Yeah. And he signed in the space at the top.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's a pretty cool poster I've got. So I'm not trying to big dick here.
No,
but,
it's okay.
That was my favorite
John
story.
Landis is somebody we would love to have on the show.
Well, I'd love to see him come to the Scarefest.
I would too.
I've actually put him, when they ask who do you want, he's always the one I put on there. Him and Joe Dante.
And Neil Marshall.
And any of this. I think the problem is, and this is with us, and I know the Griff and Brandon and Nicole have been very nice to us, which is along Patty's star. Patty gave us our start in moderating. I've been going to all of them. But I know they want to put those big names up there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and because they want to draw people in.
And,
and I think John Landis is a big name, but is it because I'm a geek that I think John Landis is a big name?
And that's the problem.
Do you understand what I mean?
I totally
Patty
get
and I
it.
argued about this more than once in her kitchen.
Oh yeah, and I've had some discussions with them, and and that's the thing. These are people that are names, and they're a big deal, but would they draw in the kind of crowds that they need to justify the money it would cost to bring them out?
I've met John Carpenter twice, and I remember 2 years ago sitting in Patty's, 2 or 3 years ago, you were with me.
Yeah.
Sitting in Patty's kitchen, and I remember what it would have taken to get him here, and I had to honestly look at her and say, I don't know that it's worth it.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a wall to your left of John Carpenter original one sheets. Yep. 3 out of the 4 there are signed by him.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, but I don't know that it would have been the big... If you got him and a bunch of people from Halloween, and you could do it as a group, then yes.
Yeah. By the way, the actor you're talking about, Michael Beck?
Michael Beck, thank you very much.
What's he look like?
It was killing me.
I don't have it pulled up.
Yeah, but he looks like Michael Beck.
Yeah, he looks very
I'm trying to figure out which one it is from the Warriors.
He was the man. He was the leader.
Okay.
He also was in Mayflower, The Pilgrim's Adventure.
Yes.
Battle Truck, the same year as Megaforce. He did Battle Truck and Megaforce in 1 year.
Yeah.
Where did he find the time?
I know. Can
Anyway.
you believe that? But
So, how many? You were telling me before the show. How many episodes are you on?
we're getting ready to cut our. Let's see. We're tonight actually. I'm cutting 398. We're doing King Kong, the 1933 version.
Did you get to see the armature when you were?
Yes, I got to hold the armature.
We have got pictures of us holding it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Because we met him in Louisville.
You met him at Wonderfest,
We met him
you?
at Wonderfest.
Yes.
He used to go to Wonderfest every year. He was there every year.
Is great.
Yes, it is. If
but-
you're into models, especially,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
But yeah, his
won't let me
presentations there
monitor.
about his haunted houses that he used to do
Yes.
and all
Oh,
that.
God.
And bringing out some of the people that did special effects on Star Trek just to
Mhm.
do his house, and I
Well-
was just sitting there the entire time going,
And they
I'll never be that cool.
and they brought out all that stuff from Alien to do the
Oh, yeah.
haunted house with that. Oh my God.
William Malone did stuff with him.
Yeah.
Bill Malone. Do
Yeah.
you know who William Malone is? He directed Return of the Living.
Yes.
Return of
House on a
House
Hill.
on a Hill
House on
remake.
the- yeah.
He did a lot, but he and Bob Burns are fans, and he helped him with a lot of the haunted. He actually he was on our show last week. He's going to be in another month.
Oh, well, I'm checking that one out.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, we're good with getting guests, but it's the viewership we need to work on.
Well, you know.
Well, we
that's-
have tons
that
of
comes with
viewers.
time.
We do have tons of viewers. They
We have
just
tons
won't
of viewers.
subscribe.
We can't get them to hit that little button that says subscribe.
And it's that's
And it's
because
right
you keep-
now on the.
Okay,
Right,
you keep
right.
saying the right, but you point to the left. So it's on the right side.
I
It's this
can't-
side.
It's
Here?
right here.
And I can't read.
It's
Are you
right
pointing
here.
at his penis?
Put it in
Yes,
the center.
It's right.
Put it in the
Just
center.
put it in the middle.
Put it over
He
my
says-
face from now on. Just click on subscribe head right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But
So
yeah,
anyway.
we're going to be doing so 2 more and we hit 400.
It's awesome.
And I'm pretty excited about that. And I've been doing this cast now for 10 years. So, you know, we used to do it weekly. The main host passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was an older gentleman. He was just turning 65, actually, and had a heart attack. And so his widow, who had joined us as one of the hosts, she wanted to carry on. So we still record, but we've gone from doing it about 40 times a year to down to about 15 times, give or take.
Okay,
15
so
to
a
20.
little more than once a month.
Yeah, we've we're running about 1 to 2 shows a month, give or take.
And where's home base?
Well, she's recording everything in Irmo, South Carolina,
Uh-huh.
because he had a $30,000. He was a nuclear engineer at a nuclear plant in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So, and he had no kids, and so he just spent money on his hobby. So he had a incredible production studio.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, like $25,000-$30,000 worth of equipment studio. So we record it through there, and then his wife sends me the files, and I edit it
Oh.
because she doesn't know how to run editing software. So I edit the podcast.
Haley's giving me the about running because we're trying to be conscious of the time and
Right.
run around an hour. I do want to talk about Comic-Cons coming up.
Yes,
Lexington Comic-Con, you're going to be there, right?
I will be there. I have a table at it. I'll be pimping my werewolf books and my new cookbook that my wife and I just wrote, the B-Movie Cookbook.
I've got to ask, can you give us a sample recipe? What's your favorite recipe, and what
Yeah.
B movie does it come from?
Okay, my favorite recipe is actually, it's a tropical chicken, and a pineapple chicken type recipe, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it comes from the movie From Hell It Came, from 1956, and it's about it's a set on a South Pacific island where a villager is killed, and the voodoo witch doctor buries him with a knife in his heart, but causes this, does a ceremony, and the guy comes back as a killer tree. And he lumbers around the island as a killer tree.
No.
Yeah, see, lumbers around. And the only way he ever catches anybody is if they seem to sort of happen to stumble into him. But the chicken
Later on, he'd get a job
Yeah.
in the forest working for Raimi and Evil Dead
Exactly.
pictures, and he'd get a little handsy.
But the chicken for that was amazing. And because here's the thing, my wife, she's also a writer.
Yeah.
And she just did a culinary history of Kentucky about 2 years ago, which is a historical look at Kentucky cooking and recipes and food, but it has recipes in it. So it's kind of half history, half cookbook. And that gave me the idea for doing the B-Movie Cookbook. And we actually, remember I mentioned my friend Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as I said, he was good friends with Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
He works with the Ray Harryhausen Institute. So we did 20 Million Miles to Earth is one of our movies.
Right.
And in that section, that was a Ray Harryhausen film, we actually have 2 exclusive photos of Ray Harryhausen. One at his 92nd birthday,
Mm-hmm.
cutting the cake,
Uh-huh.
and then another is of one of the props from that film, along with a model of the creature, the Ymir.
Yeah.
So, I'm really pleased that we got those. But we did 15 movies from the 1950s
Yeah.
that I liked, that my wife liked, and that we figured out recipes to go with. So it's either food inspired by the movie, food mentioned in the movie, or food that we just think goes with the movie.
Well,
So,
now,
like,
and you mentioned your wife is an author as well. Helped with
Yeah.
the cookbook. She also, if I'm not mistaken, Weird Lexington.
not Weird Lexington, but Wicked Lexington.
I'm sorry,
Wicked
Lexington.
Lexington, and she also runs BritishFoodAndTravel.com, which is a website obviously about British food and travel. And so she is an extremely good cook. So she came up with all the recipes, and I did all the movie stuff and the trivia. And it's funny because we did Forbidden Planet as one of our movies, and
Sorry,
there is
I can't wait to hear what
there's no food in that movie. There is nothing. There's at one point they blow up a piece of fruit, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But there's bourbon, and the whole movie is about the id, the inner monster.
Yeah.
So we just did desserts, and it's all bourbon themed desserts or liquor themed desserts in that
cool.
section of the cookbook, because it's servicing your id.
So you're going to be at Lexington Comic Con, and
Yes.
they can stop by the table, and you will sign it for them?
I will sign anything they want me to sign, but if it happens to be a book of mine they bought, hey, even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
I'll have you sign my chest when we're down there in between panels.
Well, I'll get a Sharpie, And, but if you do buy an ebook from me,
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and warn you, it isn't cool when I sign your Kindle. Because that gets old real quick and you run out of room. So.
Well, I always admire people who do this, and we got to have you. Actually, I'd like to have you back with your wife sometime, and we could spend a whole thing about self-publishing.
Oh, I'd love to.
And I think that'd be fascinating. What do you
Because,
guys think?
and I'll be honest, I've much like you mentioned, tons of ideas kicking around.
Yeah.
That follow through, because I actually tried to do the NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo, yeah.
And I tried to do that, and it went okay, but then I just put it in a drawer. So I'm fascinated by follow
But he
through.
can rock out to Bananarama.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But no,
He wears a banana hammock while he's doing it.
and I've taken some time off from writing over the last couple of years because I've actually been producing, and I co-wrote a film, a action comedy called Loss Prevention, and then I also produced it with some partners of mine out of Louisville, Kentucky. They're with Thoughtfly Studios, thoughtfly.com. And they are basically they're a professional production company.
Right.
So they do, for example, some of their customers include Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, University of Louisville, General Electric. They do commercials. They do just about any kind of video or sound production that you would want. And they also like making movies. And their first film, Overtime, did really well. Got nationwide DVD Blu-ray release. So we all got together and wanted to do a movie. So we did an action comedy with professional wrestler Al Snow called Overtime.
Yeah.
And you have a Road Warrior poster over there.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and tell you, we had the guy who played Mohawk, Vernon Wells.
Wells.
He's our name in Loss Prevention.
That's cool.
And then I just produced with my partners another film. Now this one I didn't co-write, but it's a horror movie. And it's called Wretch, and it actually features Wendigos. And we used a special effects company out of Louisville that runs the Asylum Haunted Attraction. They do all the props for the Asylum. Well, they did our Wendigo creature, and it looks really good. And
So have you got distribution yet for?
we're actually in the film. Wretch is in the film festival circuit right now. We're getting ready to put Loss Prevention into the circuit also. And we're waiting. We've actually had some offers for distribution from the folks who did Overtime originally. And while it was a great deal as far as getting the film out there, it wasn't so great as far as getting the paychecks from them.
Here.
So
we talked to William. This is for the episode for William Malone. He talked about that. his example was, oh, that's great. So you want me to give you this movie for free, basically now, because that's what they want you to do. Why don't you go down to the Rolls Royce dealership and ask them for the car for free? And if they give you the car, then I'll give you the movie.
Well,
yeah. No, it's brutal.
It's
changed too. That was
the whole model's changed.
In film festivals, we just did this. We did a short film a couple years ago. And it may very well be one of the biggest wastes of money now possible.
Yeah, you can't make a film. You can't make an independent film with the idea of making money.
Yeah.
No.
You make the film because you want to make the film. And then if you can make money, good. But, you know, everybody points to some of the big successes, like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
It comes at night.
Right.
You know, it follows.
Right.
And it follows less than the first two. But, you know, these are movies that didn't cost a lot. I mean, good Lord, Paranormal Activity was like $200,000 or something like that. And, you know, it went on to make $100 million. Blair Witch Project.
But that's another example of hooking up with a major studio making them redo the original ending, and then putting money in it to gloss it over and make it look better than what they actually made in the first place.
Especially the sound. That's right. Everybody skips sound design.
Oh, because it's brutal.
You know? And that's the thing. What if you're watching a bad movie? Okay, or if you're watching a movie, what's going to really make you not watch it? If you can't hear what's being said.
Yeah.
You know, it can be dark. You can still sort of figure it out. But if you can't understand what everybody's saying, you're going to turn it off.
So Joe's anger about Manos, the Hands of Fate, being out of focus.
Yeah. Well, well, there's a lot to be angry about with Manos. But, you know.
Well, anyway, we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Quick, I wanted to ask, though, the one movie I want to know about, have you ever done Damnation Alley for...
Funny you mentioned that. That was I wanted to do Damnation Alley. We haven't gotten around to it yet, but it's kind of on my list.
Because that's one that, as I read the history of it myself, I'm fascinated by that film because that was Fox's sure bet sci-fi action film
with George Papard and Michael Vincent.
And they had this little B-roll movie they were going to do called Star Wars. But Damnation Alley was what they knew. They knew that was going to make money.
And they just let Star Wars go because Lucas made them all that money with American Graffiti. So, you know, but it's like, whatever.
And Star Wars didn't come out on a multi-platform either. They only released it in a few places opening weekend, FYI. I'm sorry.
But anyway, Damnation Alley, I had to ask because that's one that... I'm ordering a DVD of it because I watched it on Joe Bob Briggs when he did the Monster.
drive-in theater, yeah.
And I watched it there, and I was like, this movie is insane. Like the giant roaches chasing a motorcycle. And I was like, I've got to... And now, looking back on it, I'm like, I've got to see that again because am I imagining it's as crazy or is it as crazy as I remember it?
It's pretty much as crazy as you remember it, you know. And it's, you know, with the whole thing of we've got this narrow path that we have to take our souped-up space RV through or else we'll die from radiation.
Somebody told me that's in private ownership now. I've heard that somewhere.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I know I'd love to own one of those things.
That's what I was going to say. And we've talked to other people that, you know, Mick Strawn, and some other people who said, you know, they used to just throw that stuff out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how Bob Burns got all the stuff in his basement.
The armature.
Yeah, they're just like, oh yeah, here you want the sub from 20,000 Leagues.
Let me go build a garage. Here you go. Put it down in it. Yeah.
I mean, he's got the original time machine from the H.G. Wells time machine sitting in a corner. With the I can't remember the actor that was in it, but he's got his outfit on a mannequin, and it's just he's got him seated at the time machine.
It's
from the Birds.
Yeah,
and not Alan Ladd.
Not Alan Thicke. No, Alan Thicke's guy selling timeshares or something.
Taylor. Rod Taylor.
Because he's also in the Great Western Time Travel show that I talked about that episode.
Yeah. Rod Taylor. Anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of time travel westerns, who here's seen Time Rider, The Legend of Lyle Swan?
I have not.
Fred Ward.
I have not.
Look that shit.
I know who Fred Ward is.
Look that up. That's a 1982 classic. I saw that in the theater too, and actually I enjoy that one. He's a motocross guy who goes through a field that is in the middle of a time experiment, ends up in the Old West, never figures out that he's in the Old West through the movie. That he's just like, man, these people are weird. And it's really fun.
I now have, I'm going to get my order of Damnation Alley.
So look for Time Rider.
And then I'll get Time Rider. And I'll just marathon
as much as I hate to ruin this, one last time, to get your books, you're going to be at Comic-Con.
I'll be at Comic-Con.
They can go to where to order?
Best place to order is go to bmoviecookbook.com or
Okay.
werewolfforhire.com.
Got it.
Those are my two best sites for ordering. bmovieman.com will do it. bmoviecast.com. You can get it there.
Okay.
And that's where they can get to your podcast,
They
right?
can get to the podcast from any of those also. So.
And if you go to Comic-Con and subscribe to Bonehead and say that you met us, he will give you one of these signed for free.
I won't,
Now-
but I will. Not for free.
No.
But I tell you what, I will do a 20% discount.
Oh.
So if you
there
come up
go.
and mention the Bonehead podcast, you get a 20% discount on any of my
See,
books.
they were about to throw something at me. I meant it as a joke, but see, you just put your foot out there, 20%.
I'm always willing to do promotions.
Well, thank you so
That's,
much. And if you come and mention Nick to us, we will give you a 20% discount.
And actually, I tell you what, I'm going to give you another one.
Oh,
Joe will give you a free haircut.
If whoever you subscribes from this cast,
yeah.
your first 5 subscribers, put their names in a hat and draw and send me the name and
Okay.
email, and I'll send them an ebook for free.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sweet,
You
sweet.
know.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that's all the time we've got. Thank you so much, Nick. This has been fun. We'll have you
It
back
is.
on with your wife, right?
I love that. Thank you very much.
Thank you
She
so
would-
much. Comic-Con, stop by, get this book, come see us, but also stop by, pick up one of his books, all right? I'm Joe Lewis.
Nic Brown.
I'm Chef Boy. That's nasty.
James Thomas, get these books, seriously.
All right, and we're out of
It's
here.
over there. I pointed to the wrong camera. Wrong camera! Yeah, well.
Welcome to Bonehead. This is where the credits go.
I'm not doing another song. Okay, James is turned to do the song.
Want to make sure that everybody's hydrated. All right, stop.